mentor. I'm just at the end of like the celebration of Pharaoh's and Coltrane's history and legacy.
Sure.
And you know, the issues of students approaching me even today, and how to be better players, you know, how to be more like these guys. See? And of course the understanding or the assumption is for most people who are ready for school and training is that, no, you got to study, which is part of the process. That doesn't equal what we're talking about, but you got to study. You got to be careful of what you study, because what you study is too often what you have no choice but to become. They become the school, and that is not the result spiritual people are looking for.
Yeah, and you've been known as a teacher that works with paradoxes, and then you have, you know, you're saying, which comes up many times in your books, and you have the book entitled The Great Equation, but with that being no self, no thought, no mind equals no problems. I was wondering if you can talk a little bit about that and maybe how it relates to musicians.
Well, firstly, it's a good question. And what it really points to is the fact that even people like Pharaoh, who I knew very well, and I assume Coltrane, were trying to move into what, let's say, one of Coltrane's records describes as selflessness. See, so he was on it. Pharaoh was also on that. How to be who you are with 50% less selfishness and 50% more selflessness. See, and so a lot of my paradoxical, if you want to call them that, writings and isms or ideas or even let's say disciplines have to do with transcending the self. But you need to know what that is. See? And so in that phrase, no self, no thought, no mind, you also included no body, at some points equals no problemos, is that none of the karma that we inherited is who we are, but what we must go through. And we're talking about blood karma, ancestral karma. That means being given a body with patterns and habits. That is something to observe, to make sure that your body is functioning in such a way that enables you to find peace. Right? No, in other words, no body karma in the way. No physical karma in the way. The next one, right, has to do with the emotions. Right? And I ordered it, no self, no thought, no mind, so we can start with the body and then try and get to that same equivalent here, which is selflessness. We can start with the body, and then people can relate to the body. You know, it's physical. We are physical beings, but that's not all we are. We're also emotional beings. So a lot of what is physical is also conveyed to the emotional body, and you know, we have emotions because of physical experiences, let's say. Some good, some bad, all kinds of other stuff that we experience in the body. We have emotions about that. So then we have physical, and then we have emotional, then we have, let's say, the causal body, memories. We have memories that also add to the obstructions that disable us from being free players. We have memories, bad memories. So we have the causal body, right? So you have the physical body, you have the emotional body, you have the causal body, or the psychic body, if we can say that, like preliminary spiritual, psychic, having to do with ancestral spirits, right? The influences of the spirits, and what they cause. What people don't know, the family spirit stories about family members, high and low, right? Happy, unhappy, you know, disasters like what's going on in the Middle East. That is horrible, disastrous memory creation. And not only are the children being like butchered, but they're given the most terrible memories of what they see, what they hear, ever, because of the nature of war. So So they have problems, and they're going to have problems with the physical, the emotional, and the causal, and then naturally, or as I was saying, the memory body, right, and then the mental body. We can say the lower mental body, intellectual understanding, thought. See? And then there's a higher thought, which is beyond the suffering of thought and thought about suffering, and then we get to the spiritual, which is something you can think about, you can feel, you can physically recognize to a certain degree. You can even play about it. Say from your emotional center, you can play what you want from the Spirit. So you can pray what you want from the Spirit as such. So, but all these dynamics are consistent with the ancient understanding of being in multiple bodies, different layers of consciousness, which we are. We're all layers of consciousness, actually. But here, then we're talking about moving more towards a higher consciousness of no suffering. See? And that introduces like the higher planes of consciousness, or the heavenly planes of consciousness, which are also built in, just like the physical body, the emotional body, the causal body, the psychic body, the astral body, and then the mental body, and then the spiritual body, the basic spiritual body. Then we have the higher levels of this, which have to do then with the word that's very important, transcendence, the nobody.
Yes. So since we're on the topic, I'm now looking at your book entitled The Great Equation, No Self, No Thought, No Mind equals No Problems. In chapter 2, you have a title called The Truth of No Self equals No Suffering. And I was wondering if maybe you could speak of if you feel that that relates to our conversation when we're outside along the lines of John Coltrane.
Well, yes. It seems that part of his message was about his recognition how important selflessness is, and I would add that, well, that points to compassion, egolessness, selflessness, see, which is the solution for suffering, selflessness. You see, because it can be said that originally we are pure spirit soul being when you're born, zero. And this is prior to your developing and accumulating karma as a result of your conditioning, your family karma. That means what they do, their programs, so to speak, high and low, prejudice, anger, right? Egotism to no selfishness, egotism to no end, right? Where only you matter, nobody else matters, so on and so forth. So there's this movement that has reached, that is spiritual movement in consciousness that has reached the jazz musicians, and my focus is that this is related to Pharaoh's conversations with me about how important selflessness, compassion is for the musicians and for the people of the world. We had these conversations about that. And how John was working towards that, and he noted that in some of his notes, right? Selflessness, right? The record, selflessness. Seeing it, and then playing what his sense of that was as also a cry out to the creative within himself, the God in him, asking for and or being grateful for whatever selflessness, consciousness he was able to share and manifest with the world. And he was a world server, as far as I'm concerned, like a prophet, Pharaoh too. But they're not just great musicians, they have a great heart too. And I'm glad I felt that from Pharaoh, which sort of serve to make my own heart even better, because it's like we may mistake sometimes a musician as being less than a yogi. So you have to be careful of that. Where some musicians are as much yogis as yogis are. See? It's all about your level of practice and what the higher purpose of your practice is. That means what you're using as discipline to get beyond what we would call cosmic suffering. Suffering body, suffering emotions, suffering memories, suffering experiences, suffering people, suffering yourself, suffering the world, suffering everything. Just in a state of complete suffering. And I humbly say that the people who are engaged in this war nonsense are in hell. It is simple. Halation. It's so.
And then also in your book, The Great Equation, you have chapter 4 entitled Penetrating into Formlessness. And I was wondering if you could talk about that.
That's part of the process. Selflessness equates with formlessness. See? That means nothing in the way. At an ultimate level, it means no one in the way. Selflessness. True, say, perfect selflessness. See? The wisdom of selflessness. No one in the way. Say, nothing in the way. Openness. But consciousness, so, and it's not like unconsciousness. See? It is true consciousness, pure consciousness, or even perfect consciousness, right? Just being here, now, right? In peace, clear, not dead, but awake, responsive, in tune, see? Capable, see? Enlightened. Into being of service to other people. Helping others. And for the exercise of the heart, there's nothing better than serving others, feeling good about it, and making them feel better about their lives, themselves, and their suffering, their lack of enlightenment. So nothingness is critical as a concept, because we are in truth absolutely nothing that gets in the way of enlightenment. We are the nothing in the way, as well as everything in the way. See, the paradox. See, the everything of nothing and the nothing of everything is a riddle to be solved by practitioners. See, because Coltrane's talking about selflessness, but you heard how many notes he played? He was like, he had a lot to offer, so he was working very hard at making sure the infinite was coming through him, and the purity and depth of his heart, truth and love were coming through his music. See? And I say the same with Pharaoh. See? He was part of that. We talked about such things, even if we are just beginners in a certain sense. As friends, we brought that to one another, that we must be heartful, good spirits, right? Despite our tendencies and preferences. So nothingness then equates with emptiness or enlightenment, radiance of the divinity of each being and true being.
Another chapter here from The Great Equation, chapter 8, you're calling Whose Negative Emotions Are Also Empty Silence. I was wondering if you could speak on that.
Well, that's part of the paradoxical, say, beauty of the Dharma. See, the paths, the spiritual paths, or the paths of transcendence. And transcendence includes transcendence of speech. See, so it's going beyond thought. See, so read that again.
Mm-hmm. Whose negative emotions are also empty silence.
All negative emotions are, in truth, from the point of view of enlightenment, empty silence. In other words, they are not reality. They are occurring by way of relative karma. And that's not ultimately real. So that negative emotions are something that we suffer, but we don't have to. So we can try to get beyond negative emotions, which are programmed by the river of blood for the most part, and something we inherit and assume is truth. Sometimes we assume that's who we are with negative emotions. When we're not that, but we assume we are that. See, that's why you have, like even in the field of social intercourse and conflict, you have people who are called racist, who have a lot of negative emotions. But they're not based on anything true. They're based upon assumption and prejudice, conditioning, when enlightenment is beyond conditioning. And that's where the silence and the light of enlightenment shows up. See? See? Because the heart is not made to hate, but it is made to hate. When the heart is made to love, which is better for the heart itself. See? The heart of truth, the truth of the heart, is best to love. And of course, what we're talking about is in the real world where there's hatred already, then you have to deal with it. You have to pick up on that hate. The idea is to know it as a condition of ignorance that is sad, and we all feel it, and we all experience it, but that's not who we are as pure spirit soul. That's who we are as unenlightened, ignorant, selfish automatons. Until awakenment, we have access to enlightenment, in truth, right? Pure spirit nature. And the heavenly kingdoms that exist not only in the name of pure spirit nature, but are around us all the time, but we don't feel it because we're not open to what it is. See, it's a matter of opening to enlightenment, to know it. And just as you can be closed, you can be open. Right? The eyes awaken in the morning, for the most part, and close at night. See? So there's opening and closing. See, there's enlightenment and endarkenment. These are the two poles of existence. You have hatred and you have ecstatic love. See, which do you choose? To be unhappy or to be happy? Blissed down. See? So it depends on your nature as a creative being who is in the, let's say, spiritually interested in going beyond your suffering. Your blood karma, the heaviness and gravitational influence of blood karma, hatred and ignorance and harm, self-harming, harming of others, and rise to the next level, beyond harming. See, goodness, compassion, kindness, love, and happiness.
Okay, so now I'm looking at your book entitled Fire of No Music. And you have a chapter, which is chapter 4, titled Master Transcendence and Enter the Fire. Mm-hmm. So I was wondering if you could speak on that in terms of our conversation here.
Well, we don't mean physical fire. See, it's not a physical fire. It's like that. Right. See, in other words, there's a transformational quality that is needed to enter the higher, if we can call them that, states of enlightenment awareness. See, where you have to shed all your darkness and suffering and unhappiness and confusion, see, hatred, and ignorance. You have to recognize it to get beyond it. See. So we have to master even that, letting go. We have to master having to transcend anything. See. Because transcending is a thing we have to recognize is part of this process. See. In other words, we have to let go. Transcend means let go of, go beyond. See? Self-thought, mind, world, and everything. And enter the light, which is the clear light of being here now. See? So we have to go beyond transcending. That means we have to learn how to transcend and let go well enough so that you automatically transcend everything. After a while, whatever comes to you, you're not suffering it. See? It's let go of spontaneously, intuitively. You let go of because you know you don't need that. You don't need the thing. You don't need the person. You don't need the material. You don't need anything that stands in the way of the spiritual. And then we don't need the spiritual. That too has to be transcended, inevitably and ultimately. So that what is left is clear light. Nothing. Zero in the way. And it's not negative. It just means everything is obvious. See? Everything is light. Luminous. See? Enlightenment. Okay? Gone. Poof. See? Silent. Peace. Grace. Phew.
Phew.